I kind of feel like I will, but let's test. About to hop in the shower and make some coffee. So tired today for some reason. Sorry to hear that. Goodbye your instilling orb. Put this guy at 1 instilling orb. I think 2.2k life is going to be a little too low to not get, you know, demolished. We can try. Quicksilvers go. Trying a corner, feels good. Nearly found an event. It's a bad event. It's tragic. Be alright. My health definitely doesn't stay full time. Come back, monkey. Maybe I should go at an angle. Continue going up this way. I guess I could test this pretty easy if I take this out. We can see if the Defiled Forces is working. No, it definitely doesn't. Does it? Oh, I need this guy to get ignited again. We'll ignite this guy and then we'll take the DD out and we'll see if it just like holds the whole time. It doesn't hit me very often. Also like such a weak ignite. Like doesn't hit me enough. I need to find a tankier mob that hits quickly. I need to see if the Defiled Force works. I kind of feel like it doesn't. I know it works with Arcanist, but Arcanist is a little different. But I don't know, is it really that much different? I mean, it's still a trigger. I feel like it works. I don't know. So we have 2 events like this. So they're either the south and east ones, or they're the north and west ones. I don't really know which. There's a lot of juice this way. There's a little juice this way. I don't know, I'm kind of inclined to go down. But I don't know, there's 2 colors up that way. No, I'm less inclined to think it's down, because of where I spawned, there wasn't like a path down and right. So I feel like these are the east and the south ones, so we'll go up. I should be heading up and left for the northern one. Or not. Large hybrid flask. I'm rich. That was the northern one. This looks dead. This looks super dead in this area. Although, does it? Question is, I've gone pretty far west at this point. Do I think the event's this way or this way? There's a trail leading this way, but I kind of think it was the other way. That's okay. Yeah, I feel like the event was there. We'll go get everything. This is what the Quicksilvers are for. You don't really need other flasks, so might as well. I mean, you could do like Flagellant Flask or something. Or whatever the T2 is called, Masochist. For like more defenses, maybe would be good. With like a granite or something. You don't really need it. So So I just have some enkindled quicksilvers for running the forest afterwards. And maybe the event was like here. Maybe it was a lot closer. Instead of hooking a left, I should have hooked a right. Then a left and down. That would make more sense. Scum Flayer the Fearless. Summoner of Frogs. Spreader of Poisons. I will say the damage on the budget build, not so good. At least for like single target situations like this. This is a pretty low whisk count. Like my haphazard exploration early. AKA me being bad. Let's go check stuff. Oh.
All suffering in this world stems from your action. Bring the beast in my sights, exile. You have been captured. You will be a survivor, or you will be fooled.
There you go. Fuck the Eldritch monsters. There. I really don't like the rampage monsters with Chieftain though. It's like, I don't know, like Bisco's is really efficient. Maybe you just wear, that you don't really zoom around and have like really high rampage. I guess you do with the Abyss Spires. We pass the reservation, it's pretty good. But maybe you just wear the attribute one, honestly speaking, like the 8 quant attribute belt. It's not bad. It's a little fire res, has attributes. Quant. Yo up, Limit. Yo up, Tintin. A quick question. Is anyone tested on juicing a blighted map to see the drops compared to T7 cemetery strat? Do blighted maps have wildwood? I'd imagine they don't. Like, I know unique maps don't have it. Sadly. It'd be really nice if they did. I'm not overcapped in my... Oh, I'm like super overcapped with this build. I can go one of these. A little bad against exposures, but it's not that bad. I'll have this flask up most of the time. This mob has figured out that if it just doesn't attack me, I can't attack it. It's outsmarted me. Oh, you're talking about just like adding a blight into regular maps? Like a blight in regular maps? Blights tend to have not the best drops, but you know, like there's an okay amount of rares. The problem is that like the majority of it, like the problem is that like the majority of the mobs in blight maps are regular creatures, and they're not very. They're regular creatures and they have like reduced drops because there's like so many of them. They're adjusted. So you're kind of hoping for rare monsters, and you're in particular hoping for rare monsters that give you conversions, of which Blight doesn't spawn that many, I don't believe. And the bosses can be okay. But once again, like bosses can't get conversions, so I don't think they'll be like that crazy. And you're pretty taxed a lot of the time with what you can put into a map. I mean, you could try it out. Like, I click blights when I see them. I've never been, like, terribly impressed by the outcomes of them so far. Yeah, of course. Don't pop. So we like stand away from the spire. You pull the range mobs a little further away. Oh, it's all burning. Live, spire, live! It's gone. It's super gone. Wait, this mob attacks faster and has an ignite on it. Let's see if it keeps an ignite. It looks like Defiled Forces is working. Which would make Defiled Forces extremely good for like these kind of budgety low damage ones. Where you can carry any kind of, like, cause like your detonate ignites are gonna be worse than even like a white monster explosion, right? And while a white monster explosion might not carry the whole way, under normal circumstances, if you're constantly refreshing it with Defiled Forces, that seems fine. Cause this thing's just like burning away, right? Yeah, I like Defiled Forces a lot. You also get 20% ignite off of it from the mastery, which can be pretty helpful. Alright, well, this guy's. The last question, please. The increased damage on the body is mandatory. No, not at all. Not at all. It would wait long. I'm currently tweaking and perfecting the budget, Chieftain. Getting rate limited by Discord, I'm sorry. Why don't people use this? This is so good, right? Surely Defiled Forces is good. I have to believe it's good. Maybe people don't use it because normally they have damage and it doesn't matter. DDLE do it? No, I know they do it. I mean, like, these builds. It's like, I'm not the only one playing cast one stun, Chieftain, and all that stuff. They all have a curse in the setup. But defensively, this feels very sound. And even offensively, like, this feels fine. This is T16, right? Even without a fulcrum to, like, drag the damage around, it's alright. Some of the ranged mobs that run away are particularly annoying because it's hard to get ignite on them. I almost died to those bears. Yeah, now that the character's higher level, I've kind of tweaked around with the tree. Fit in more life, more defenses, more damage, the usual. More reservations. I got to just add in Purity of Fire on top of everything else that I had already. I will not kill them. Or they'll just die of their own volition. Okay. I didn't even have DD in. That was just like Chieftain Ignites doing their own thing. Forever. I wanted to stand in the middle of the mobs. I wanted to see the damage. Alright, maybe the next one. Level 93. This guy would hit 100 so easily. I honestly wonder if it's the Defiled Forces making like such a big difference. I mean, I guess I could take it off again. I did change other things besides just the Defiled Forces, so... Abrass? Yo! The upgrade. That'd be sweet. So I lost my endurance charge. Physical damage reduction of that altar. We'll see if that makes a difference. Yeah, they seem to be. Yo, I literally think Defiled Forces is the nuts. Unless it just doesn't work. This is like a massive placebo, but I'm pretty sure it works after testing it earlier. Because it just makes it so that you... Because like normally what happens is like a rare monster will take like a small ignite, like a medium ignite or something, but it's never enough to bring it all the way down, even with like good ignite duration. But now it's just infinite ignite duration, so it will die. Providing, you know, you can get it to fight you. There are some like beyond monsters that just run. Maybe I've solved the low damage. Well, the lowish damage. Still gonna be low in a lock. Although this is way more money than my build. They're all winged. Why are they all winged? There's not a single... There's one rusted. That pile is like 20 to... What's my item rarity? Like 70. 91. I will say this map has like wing scarabs on it though. Like the map investment is not small. The character investment is very small though. How much juice? It has a winged... It has winged reliquary, winged abyss. 2 mortal fragments. If you type the MF command, that's what I'm running right now. This is like my proper setup. Affliction juice, like 4,000. It's very small. I want to take this DD out. Ugh. Lucky bastard. Why you gotta be so rude? I keep taking the dead out to try to test things, and the mobs are all dead. What do? Can I hit alt here without exploding? The answer is yes-ish. Didn't say anything else underneath. What you been thinking about, Swanson? Talk to me. I guess we can just do like a build overview at the end of this map. I'll just upload the whole thing. It'll be like a very raw, quick and dirty. Here's the build, here's what to do, here's me doing a map, here's what was on the map, yada yada yada. I don't know. I think this is wildly successful for the investment. The investment of the character defensively, the outcome of the loot is like gonna depend on how much juice you invest into your maps, as well as like the luck of your spires, luck of your wisp, all that stuff, but just like that the character can do the stuff without much issue is the point. At least seemingly without much issue. Hello, Scarabs. Been a long time since I've seen you. Listen, sometimes you just hit mobs and they give you loot, okay? Oh, I need to put Danny Dead back in to actually be able to hit this guy. Have room? Not really. 100% crit! It looks so cool even though it's not that good. Bum. Bum. Doom, 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 doom. So even though Arctic Armor doesn't have aura tag, Arrogance buffs it. I don't know if Arrogance buffs it, actually. I just put it on the reservation because that's where I can fit it. I don't think it buffs it. It's the only place I can put it, like... I don't have another 25% aura that I'm running. This is 35, so like this doesn't fit under Arrogance to keep me above 50. Vitality's already on Arrogance. Like, Petrified and Purity of Fire are too high. So it's purely just for preserving life, because I have the spare life.
I cannot carry this.
Doom, 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 doom. Yeah, I don't know. That clear seemed much better than yesterday's, but maybe the damage is just higher. I don't know. We can look at the new tree and everything, and then I'll post the POB with it as well. People can toy around with it. I'll have like a little write-up on the things I searched for, how you can find them. There's more you can buy. Are Avarice like 2-0 now? No, I just like Avarice, and I don't have a pair. I'm just taking it with me. You haven't seen any in leagues? They're T1s, I'm pretty sure. They're like a true T1. They're like Brine King and all that stuff. So they're pretty uncommon. Well, bam! Doom, 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 doom. And there's still some like jump sockets, so if people want, you know, a phase run in, you can. Cool, Alira is getting demolished. Get out of here. Build's insane. Alright, I guess we'll look at stuff. So, this map obviously like overinvested. I think my Sextants and Scarabs have run out. I'll include that in like the comments or something. But the TLDR is, the map has Delirium, it has Beyond, it has, as far as results are concerned, not necessarily difficulty, it had Winged Abyss, Winged Reliquary, 2 Mortal Fragments, because I very much enjoy having extra quantity in my maps. This wasn't even like a corrupted map, this was just a rolled rare map that rolled projectiles and good modifiers, and then I added more stuff to it. Maybe didn't even roll projectiles, I just rolled the damage mods, right? Yeah, this was just like damage testing. So this just has 2 damage mods, nothing special, it's just extra fizz is fire, extra fizz is lightning, just to check the damage of the creatures. The less armor modifier doesn't matter, we're not armor scaling. The less suppression doesn't matter, we're not suppression. Defense of the build are very, very straightforward. We have things like Defiance of Destiny. I'm sure you've seen this item. You can look at my roll. It's a 27% missing unreserved life roll, and I reserve 49% of my life, maybe a little more. It's like 49.5. Either way, it's not 50% or more. This is important for later. But I use effectively a min roll, Defiance of Destiny. The life roll is very high, the resistance is high, the resistance doesn't really matter, but the life roll is very nice. You would like the gain percent of missing unreserved life to be as high as you can, but this is a budget character. This entire character was made, I think by the end it was like 230 chaos, including a cluster at the end. But otherwise, we went with like the bare bones everything. Anyone know Tectigate Vault Breach? There's the Emptiness div card, and there are Flawless Breachstones. You have to do one of the two. So we use Defiance of Destiny. It's a very common item used defensively. In conjunction, normally I don't advocate for using both of these at once, but as I said, this is a budget character, so we're just coupling together the worst of everything. So I'm also using the bloodnotch combo. The bloodnotch combo involves using Energy Shield Mastery here, which reduces your stun threshold to 60% of your energy shield. In conjunction with Agnostic, you can reduce your energy shield to 0, which makes it so that you always get stunned. Alongside this, you use the Bloodnotch Crimson Jewel. You can see here I have a 46%. It's a very low roll. You can use a min roll, it does not matter. Since we're using it in conjunction with Defiance, it'll always, as far as I can tell, it'll always recover you to full. To facilitate the stun aspect of the build, use Immutable Force. We use Immutable Force also for our offensive capabilities, which we'll get to later. More on the defenses. As I said, I bought a Cluster Jewel, It has chaos res. You don't quite need this much. You can have like 4 to 5. You can have 25% effect. You can have Student of Decay as the third node, gives you some damage and chaos res. You want some chaos res though. You can see here that my character has 82% chaos res. My gloves, I bought gloves that have an ignite prolif implicit on them already, and then I bought a shrieking essence of envy and I hit the gloves with it. The hope was to have an open prefix to craft life. This also has life regeneration. It's not very relevant, honestly speaking, but it was a nice benefit. That's what we did for the gloves. Other than that, we have the same thing here. You can't envy an amethyst ring, but if you just search up rings with 50 or more chaos res, they're fairly cheap. Of a whole list at the bottom, the video later of what I searched up and their rough prices. These things combined are like 20C, like 10C, 10C. It's pretty cheap. We use a Cloak of Flames to convert a lot of the physical damage to elemental damage. This is important since we can't fit in determination. We can't fit in a lot of physical damage reduction. We do have endurance charges. We have 4 max endurance charges, and we use inexorable to gain endurance charges, but there are things like altars that can remove your physical damage reduction. It's not something you're reliant on, it's just a nice benefit. Other than that, you could take Call to Arms. I mean, I've leveled up in this map, so you could take Call to Arms and doing Enduring Cry if you want. Any other major defensive things? Yeah, so I'm using Maw of Conquest. Kind of an old helmet. People don't really use it anymore. But it has several very important lines. The first one is life. And life is going to sound silly, but like it's really important that you get a high life roll where you can get it on your ring, your gloves, your Maw of Conquest, your ventors, whatever have you, because you have so many defensive layers that are capable of stopping you from dying from anything that doesn't one-shot you, that you need to put as much focus into not getting one-shot as possible, and the biggest way to do that is just increasing your life. But the other things that are very important about Maw of Conquest is you are unaffected by poison. If you're a build that's going to stand in the middle of a giant packet of enemies and your map has poison, you will die to degen. It'll eventually, it doesn't matter that you have capped res, it doesn't matter that you have a lot of recoup, it doesn't matter that you have a lot of regen, you will eventually get overwhelmed. I can stand in abysses sometimes and I'll see myself going to 100, 200 stacks of poison, it'll kill you. So you need some kind of answer to poison. You can do it on a flask if you really want. I like using it on Maw because, once again, the other stat is damage taken recouped as life. It's nice to have an excessive amount of recoup. The reason I have an excessive amount of recoup in this build, in particular, is we're life tapping our cast 1 stun setups. So we have a life tap in our desecrate cast 1 stun enfeeble. And we have a life tap in our cruelty cast 1 stun detonate dead. You can see down here, detonate dead has a life cost about 88 life. Desecrate has a life cost of 78 life. Enfeeble has a life cost of 90 life. You're firing these off like 8 to 9 times a second each. You know, you're draining over 1,000 life a second. And even with like me having a life regen roll, even with me using level 20 vitality, I'm still going to be negative life regeneration compared to the drain of my spells. This is before using Blood Rage, this is before using Righteous Fire or anything of that nature. So, to offset that, I have as much positive recoup as possible. Traditionally, with Petrified Blood, which is another aspect of the defenses that we're using to prevent ourselves from getting one-shot, traditionally with Petrified Blood, if you have a 2120, which I do not, this was a budget build, I started with like a level 10 one and it leveled up by now. Traditionally, if you have a 2120, it is 75% of the life loss is lost over 4 seconds. To offset this, you need 30% recoup. For this build, because we have a worse Petrified Blood, doesn't have any quality, isn't 21, yada yada, it's only 81%, you need slightly more recoup. But even beyond that, like I said, we have this massive draw on our life total from these life tap setups. So I not only have 30% to help offset the Petrified Blood naturally on the tree with Infused Flesh Wheel, I have Vampirism Anointed, which is very cheap. You can see here it's an amber, a teal, and a violet. It's about 5C for the set of oils, for another 12%, and then a further increase of 19% on Maw of Conquest. If you use a rare helmet, you can get like 18% of a particular damage type, physical or elemental recoup, and it's like okay, but if you're like a budget build, I'm very much enjoy this helmet, because like once again, you need to solve poison. Rather, you would want to solve poison. Other defensive aspects of this build is I'm taking the Trial of Faith wheel for the stun mastery, hits against you cannot be critical strikes if you've been stunned recently. This is a phenomenal thing to have this league. Traditionally, there's a few ways to deal with critical damage increases this league. You'll see people taking Sanctum of Thought. You'll see people taking Armor Mastery. You take 30% reduced extra damage from critical strikes. And you can get Chest Corruptions that reduce critical strike bonus damage by 50%. You can do a lot of these things to help offset the Blue Wisp Empowerment that grants monsters a massive increase to their critical strike chance as well as critical strike multiplier. Maybe why you notice yourself getting one-shot more often than not during those high blue maps. But this makes it so that in conjunction with the rest of our build, in conjunction with Agnostic and Energy Shield Mastery, any hit against us is going to stun us. Which means as long as we have been hit in the past 4 seconds, we cannot be crit. Very powerful. You get a little bit of recovery from this. More importantly, you can opt to use the Unfaltering wheel down here if you want, especially if you want to go into armor scaling, get soul steel, get some extra res. The 10% damage taken from stunning hits here is very similar to bloodnotch, and you can effectively think of this as adding 10% to your bloodnotch. Traditionally, if you use a pure bloodnotch setup without defiance, you need a 50% or greater bloodnotch in conjunction with unfaltering, or a 60% bloodnotch. The reason this build in particular, the budget variant that I'm playing right now, wants this stuff, is because, you know, we kind of had to get one of the lower end immutables. Immutables run from 500 to 1000%, and it is a very noticeable difference having a 500% increase stun and block versus 1000. For like a relatively cheap price, I think they're like 10 to 15C. You can get in the 700 ballpark. I'm sure if you like sit there and snipe one, you can maybe get up to like 800 for pretty cheap. But you can think of these nodes here. You get 30% here, you get 50% here, you get 80% extra stun and block recovery. You can think of it as just upgrading your immutable for free, or maybe for like 1 passive point. Would highly recommend it. Is there anything else defensively? Oh, I guess we can talk about the enfeeble curse. So you can use things like flammability. You traditionally don't care about the minus res aspect of flammability, since you'll be using a Ramako Sun's Light a lot of the time. As we said, this is a very defensive build. You can stand still, it's not a problem. However, flammability does increase your chance to ignite, and because we have to cut corners, we don't have like elaborate cluster setups, we're not quite high enough level to go into Templar, you do need some more ignite chance. And where I'm getting it from currently is I'm using a Curse Mastery for 20% chance to ignite, freeze, shock, or poison cursed enemies off of the Defiled Forces wheel. I think even with that though, I only have 90% or maybe 95% ignite. You would like to definitely get that all the way up. There's no downside for the higher number immutable and bloodnotch. I mean, yeah, if you have higher ones, you can use higher ones. So you're recording right now. I'm going to make a video out of like the Twitch video and then upload it later, yeah. Is there anything else defensively that is particularly important for the build? Honestly speaking, I don't think so. As I said, like, we're using double 4-link. Searing Touch are very cheap. You would obviously like to use Fulcrum because it's better, but you don't need to. These are dirt cheap. These are like, I don't know, 2C for a high roll. Like, you can look for a near max. You can look at this one. This one has 59 out of 60 fire dot, 86 out of 90 fire damage. You can find several of these for 5C or less. The defensive auras, that's true. We can go over the auras. So you can see my assortment of auras here. I use Clarity. Okay, we'll get to the Clarity last. The Clarity's a lot simpler than it looks. But I currently have under Arrogance, Arctic Armor, and Vitality. I'm using Vitality for some regen to help offset just like general degens as well as the amount of life you lose from casting your spells. As well as I'm using Arctic Armor for the less physical damage taken while stationary. We don't have armor scaling, and we have a little bit from endurance charges, but you would still like more physical damage mitigation. It's going to be like the biggest source of your deaths if you're going to have deaths. Well, this character's been like cruising up through the 90s without much issue, doing T16s. The other R's that we're running, I'm running a Purity of Fire, just for 4 additional max res and some overall res with regeneration from the Fire Mastery. I'm running a Purity of Elements. This is a thing that you get to do when you're broke and you don't have a Fulcrum. Traditionally, if you're playing Fulcrum Chieftain, which is like what you would like to aspire to, you can't run Purity of Elements because you become immune to Ignite. We don't have a Fulcrum, so we don't care about that. So this gets to solve our freeze, our chill, our shock. It solves I mean, I guess ignite, although we're like unaffected by ignite, it doesn't really matter. It also solves those pesky delirium modifiers, such as scorch when your resistances aren't quite that high. In this case, we have very high resistances, but if you click a few altars, you can definitely notice scorch reducing you, as well as sapped, which once again, it doesn't really matter that your damage gets reduced, but you know, you would like to go faster. Brittle is also an ailment, but once again, we're typically crit immune, so it doesn't matter. This is just for fast snapping content. I would not call this build fast. I would call this build good at doing T16s with an extremely low budget and not worrying about doing anything. You just walk forward and monsters die. What's the earliest this build will be up and running? I started playing it at level 70 in T16s, and it was fine. We've already talked about Petrified Blood. We can go over it again real quick though, but what Petrified Blood does effectively is it'll check any hits against your below half of your life and reduce that damage and cause it to do damage over time to you. So you can think of it as a way to prevent one-shots, and then between regeneration and recoup and other sources of recovery, we offset the damage loss. But it's just another way to stop yourself from getting one-shot. Those are all of our auras. My charms are very simple. I even left the third charm slot open because, once again, this is a budget build. People may not find the King of the Woods at that time, whatever have you. If you have a third charm slot, you can either continue doing what I'm doing, or you can play with something else. I'm currently using Corpses Spawn have increased life. They roll all the way up to 20%, but 20% are quite expensive. Detonate Dead being a very popular archetype, as well as like Volatile Dead and all these other things, right? But I use a couple cheap ones. These are like 5C each for like the mid rolls. Other things you can use, if you want, you can do like Endurance Charge gain, you can do Endurance Charge Chaos Res, you could do all resistances if you needed, you could do Exposure, but that only helps while you're like running around. You do Consecrated Ground stuff, you could fit in like a Purifying Flames and have increased damage to monsters on Consecrated Ground. This will both help with your Curse resistance if you set up a Consecrated Ground, as well as gives you regeneration, increases the monster's damage taken. You know, there's a lot of options of cheap things you can do. You can also just do AoE scaling. You can get some like low roll area of effect per endurance charge and then just click more endurance charges. It would help. A lot of your clear is based on prolif of monsters because you don't prolif on yourself. So increasing that area of effect would be nice. I take Elemental Overload because a lot of our damage, like I need to be able to start chains with Detonate Dead, and it's a significant damage increase for the ignite portion. We can talk more on Defiled Forces. So with this being a budget build and like its objective to be doing, you know, high tier content, you want to be doing T16s. It gives you access to Sextants, it gives you access to Voldo puzzle boxes, it gives you access to better fractures. I don't know, I just find it more enjoyable content. It's a lot easier to find maps to buy for it. But one of the problems with T16s is that, like, the damage on this build is low. If you don't pop, like, a magic monster or higher on a rare, it typically won't die during the duration of the ignite. However, that being said, a weak blue monster or, like, a normal white monster popping onto a rare is still going to be significantly more damage than your Detonate Dead. So, by having Cast One Stun spamming out a curse to refresh the duration of these stronger ignites on rare enemies, it just helps with the cleanup a lot. I've definitely had a noticeable impact switching to this. And once again, like, you can pick up 20 ignite chance here, which you desperately need. Other than that, you're just going to like this typical Chieftain stuff. Like, once again, you have some regen from your uncapped fire res, you have Purity of Fire, Purity of Elements, your Cloak of Flames, you have a lot of fire res. You want ignite chance, you want ignite duration, you can see we pick it up here. Here's some ignite chance, here's some ignite chance. If you want to go into Templar, you can grab some more here. I'm using 10% of physical damage from hits taken as chaos damage. Once again, we don't really have that good of physical mitigation, so we need to move physical damage off of physical damage as best as possible. We do it with this master, we do it with the Cloak of Flames. You do it with a helmet. Once again, if you want to solve poison a different way, you can switch off Maw of Conquest, but this is like a 1C item that solves a lot of problems. Isn't Defiled Forces only working on self-cast? I mean, I was testing it earlier and it was working on this. It works with Arcanist Brand, so I imagine it works with this too. And like, so what I did earlier is I ran up to a monster, I ignited it, and then I took off all of my sources of ignite, and then it just, it burned for like 40 seconds. So I assume it's still working. How would you level it? Okay, I cheated and leveled doing one with nothing, like deck stacking one with nothing. But the previous Chieftain I played, I just leveled with Righteous Fire. Like, Righteous Fire is good. Play Righteous Fire, Fire Trap. You'll kill everything. You'll have no problem. Honestly speaking, Righteous Fire is stronger in the Axe than it was before, in my opinion. Stronger in maps too, but that's neither here nor there, really. Yeah, make sure to grab these nodes. They have a bunch of ignite duration. Other than that, I don't know. There's nothing too special about it. It's just like a bunch of budgety options. Like, I just wanted to show that it can do T16s without much issue. This is a T16. It had 2 damage modifiers. Here are my altars. The altars don't really matter. Like, the physical damage got rid of my endurance charge physical damage reduction, which I guess makes some point with the altars. Like, the Thresher still didn't kill me. The minus resistances don't matter. We're overcapped. As you can see, this is what I was talking about. If you get hit with like exposure and scorch in a situation like this, you'll start going under. Giving them resistances. I mean, they have another 123% damage. Oh, that's just for the Eldritch minions. They don't do much damage. I don't know. It seems like a solid build. This is my, like, if you ever wanted to, like, try out the playstyle of Cast 1 Stun Chieftain and you didn't want to invest a lot, this build cost me 1 divine. The outcome, like, don't look in my inventory and be like, oh man, I'm going to get rich. The amount that's invested into these maps is significantly more than the character. This was just a showcase for the defenses of the character and like the clear of the character and all that stuff. But yeah, there you go. I hope this helps some people figure out, not necessarily like the objective of this build isn't for people to be like, okay, sweet, I have a divine, I can make this character, I'll go farm stuff. Because like, something you really need to keep in mind is that the amount that you would like to invest into maps is not cheap, right? The point more of this showcase is to show the bare necessities to make this character, this kind of character, tanky enough to do the content. And from there, you can invest more into whatever you want. More into your map investment, more into your damage, get a fulcrum, get a better defiance, get better ventors, get more chaos res clusters, get a second ventors, whatever have you. I'm just showing that you do not need much to blow through T16s. And by blow through, I give that a very generous, slowly walking through it. We can talk about my flask also, because I'm sure it'll come up. This is the only flask that matters. This flask kind of matters. This gets rid of corrupted blood. This gets rid of bleed. They don't really matter. You can solve them other ways, but we have it. It's a cheap build. This is magic fine. Something that's very important is make sure you don't reserve over 50%. So you can see, I need to like click an ability. But normally I'm getting hit and it like knocks me to 50% and then you can drink this and you're fine. You can also run a blood rage to make sure it stays up. I have enkindled quicksilvers here because once again this is like a budget character. This is just for running through the wildwood. After you go through your wildwood and you have to like run back up and scoop up all the wisps that are like on the side that you left behind, you're a slow character. You want speed. Just wear a couple quicksilvers. You don't need a granite, you don't need a quartz, you don't need any of that stuff. It doesn't do anything. You can wear it if it makes you feel better. You can wear a gold flask if you really want. I'd probably replace this one with a gold flask, honestly. This just helps me get to 100% ignite, but like, once again, you don't really need it. Yeah, okay, there you go. That's the build. If you have questions, I don't know, come find me on Twitch or something. Good enough. Is there anything else I want to show, actually, while I'm still here? I'll include a POB. I mean, I guess I could show people my atlas, but it doesn't really matter. It's just like 60% modifier.